How about this? Because I've played the most. Aaron's played second most. How about you ask us questions about Watch Dogs 2?
Okay.
Can you do that?
Yeah, sure.
Put you on the spot?
Yeah.
All right.
So, I mean, how much have you played compared to Peter?
I haven't played enough to figure out the question posed in the first one, which is who watches the dogs watching the dogs? In Watch Dogs.
Have you played enough to know that answer?
No one watches them. They get away with anything they want, pretty much.
You can pet dogs in this one, so.
You can pet dogs. There's an achievement or trophy for petting 10 dogs.
I did do that in the couple hours I played. Like a dog came up to me and like the developer was like, "You can pet that." And pet it. And I was like, sick.
Yeah, get in on that.
I guess one of my biggest questions about it though, because I played a little bit of the story and it didn't seem to take itself as seriously, but it didn't seem all that interesting either.
Right.
So, I mean, you've played more. What do you think of the story so far?
The story is so inconsequential. It is basically an excuse for them. It's very like humorous this time, or at least it's trying to be humorous this time around, right? It doesn't take itself seriously. The first game was so dour and dreary and dramatic, like whatever.
Yeah.
So now the story is like, all right, a bunch of pissed off 20, 30 somethings, hacktivists. They don't like people using information for profit or to manipulate people, so they're going to fight back. And it's like too hammy. It's too goofy. I don't love that. But the characters are like, they're light, right? They don't bring you down at all. It's just kind of like, all right, here's a bunch of just eccentric weirdos that I can, talk to and do stuff. And then, so you go out in the world and you take on these, stand-ins for Google or like weird tech executives. It's like a bad alternative version of the Silicon Valley show, right? If it was put into a video game in that respect.
Okay.
And yeah, you're like fighting on the side of good, right? To like help out the public, but you're willing to do it at any cost, which if you're going to kill someone, you're going to kill someone while you do it. If you want to falsify evidence and have like police officers get arrested just because they're trying to shoot you and have someone else arrest them, you can do that. Like you can really mess with people, and the game never once asks you to think about what you're doing. Like the story is mostly meaningless. It's just set dressing.
Well, that's one thing I think I heard you talking about it, how it was kind of like, it's almost like you just committed terrorism. Here's some followers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is kind of weird, but if it's as lighthearted as you say, maybe it's...
But that's just it, right? Yeah, it doesn't ask you to like take any part of it seriously at all. So it's like at that point, should you think too much about it? You should think about it a little bit, but the game really just wants you to have fun, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I got out of it.
Yeah, I think Watch Dogs, the fun, like the sandbox, that part's really good. Watch Dogs, the like story and the theme doesn't necessarily make any sense just because you are really kind of an evil son of a bitch.
Yeah, it's totally conflicted.
And everybody, like, you do horrible things in the game. Like there was a guy just fishing on a pier and I called a gang hit on him because it was fun. And I just
Did he have
a
permit? I mean, maybe it was justified.
I mean, he was fishing near the seals and it's their food. But yeah, so like this guy totally gets murdered and then the police show up and there's this giant like shootout at Fisherman's Wharf, like Pier 39. And then the game's like, oh, you're awesome. You get followers.
Yeah.
You can't really like reconcile what you're actually doing with what the game's telling you're doing. And I kind of wish the game, I know like it doesn't take itself seriously, but in GTA, you're kind of a giant piece of crap and you know it. Yeah. And in this game, like you're a giant piece of crap, but then you have these cutscenes where you're like, oh, we're the best hackers ever doing great hacker stuff.
Well, I mean, just to be completely cynical, this is crafted, it seems like for the sort of I hate to use the word millennials, right? Who are pissed off at the system, who are pissed off at, society kind of turning the internet into garbage and then using it against people. So, hey, we're going to use our freaking powers and who cares what it takes? We're going to let out some aggression. It feels weird. There are definitely times where that conflict of ideas just doesn't make sense, but it's fun.
I definitely think it has a very strong visual design, sort of based around the movie Hackers from '95. I found myself, being a Gen X guy, immediately going to the plain clothing store and getting rid of all my clothing and turning off the music, and then I had a great time. So the theme is very strong, and I think if you're into that visual style, you'll love it. And if you're not into that visual style, you'll do what I did.
Well, then if the story's not that interesting, you're saying the visual style is good for some people, like maybe it doesn't resonate with everyone. What about the setting? So I know we're from the Bay Area. This is what I was most interested in. I did get to see a little bit of San Francisco when I played it at the event, but what do you guys think of the setting?
So the setting's great. They knocked the San Francisco out of the park. And one of the funny things was when we were just kind of talking about features to do, I was talking about all the people in San Francisco, like Bushman and like Gold Painted Man.
Oh, he just showed up.
Yeah, like and all this stuff. And like I think Mary pulled me aside and she's like, most people don't know who the F these people are.
Right.
Like you need to make another feature. So being a San Franciscan, the detail's incredible. And you'll be, mid shootout car chase and you'll just stop for a second and be like, oh, it's a modern art museum.
Right.
And then you just peel out,
Yeah. I think, yes, there are a lot of things that tourists will recognize and a lot of things that locals will recognize, but maybe apart from like weird intersections that like stood out to me, it is things like the Bushman that I think make San Francisco a little weird, that even if you don't know who it is in this game and you see it, you're going to be like, what? And like by and large, the world is just packed with like very odd sort of things. Like there's a great amount of variety in a small amount of space. And it really helps that there's so much elevation as well. One of my favorite things to do in the game, which I'm doing now just because I want to be back in this world, is to just hop on a motorcycle and ride around, go to neighborhoods, take turns I hadn't before, and see what I find. Like, ended up at a graveyard yesterday, and I saw, like from a distance, I was like, is that a band of homeless people? And I got closer, and I was like, no, those are people cosplaying as zombies, in a graveyard. And so then I went to go, as you can, take a selfie with them, and they all knew, and they like posed as like zombies and stuff, like for the camera. Like that was really cool. And like, there's just so much personality. Yes, that we see in the real life San Francisco represented in the game, but just personality in general. I think that can resonate with a lot of people. I hope so.
What about the size of this? Because they were saying like it's all over the Bay Area, but we weren't actually able to see the map also when I played, or we were, but I don't think we're allowed to capture it or whatever.
It's like Sausalito, Marin, San Francisco, Oakland. You can go down to Santa Clara, I think.
Silicon Valley area, yeah. Yeah, the map's like condensed version. So Marin County is pretty much all of the towns in Marin County smashed into one stretch.
Right. Okay.
And like San Francisco, I think Golden Gate Park kind of ate up the Presidio.
Oh, there is like
the Sunset's not in there.
Yeah, like for people who don't live in San Francisco, about the left half of it doesn't exist in the game, or it's been condensed in some way, like dramatically so.
But you'll run into all the landmarks. Like they took the important landmarks out of all of it. So yeah, I mean the world itself there's a lot of character to it.
Not a lot of characters in it.
Yeah, the characters who are there though, like you ran into zombie people. I was walking down Embarcadero and stopped some woman was like beating the crap out of her boyfriend's car who cheated on her. It's like,
oh yeah, I saw that as well. Yeah.
So then I guess we should probably talk about hacking, which is like the big thing about these games. How is it different? Because it almost seemed very, at least in the first one, it felt very like there's a stoplight, you can hack it. There's these barriers that they placed all over the city for some reason, you can hack it. There's drainage pipes you can blow up. Like, how far can you take this, I guess, would be a good question.
I only played a few hours of the first game, but from what I understand, the primary differences are, one, you can remote control other cars. You can't like power them off. So like you can't like disable a police car that's chasing you, but you can tell it to go into reverse or to take a left or a right. You can also hack, and I think this is new, you can hack through cameras. So you find a camera, you sort of tap into it, and then any other camera or device that first camera sees, you can make a leap. So that way you can kind of get deep inside buildings and follow these puzzles, these hacking puzzles essentially. But then there are also hacking puzzles from the first game that have returned where you have to sort of connect circuits. But from what I understand before, it was like you'd sort of look at like a screen that just like had the thing. It was like just a flat image. But now like these puzzles wrap around buildings. So you have to get your quadcopter, like your drone out, and literally fly around a building solving puzzles, which I found to be pretty good. Like, and a lot of times they add like a timing challenge to it as well. So you have to do it quickly. Otherwise the puzzles are, maybe a little bit basic, but that definitely, from a hacking perspective, helped me want to hack fast.
Yeah.
I think one of the fun things about the hacking is the transitions that you do. So you'll like throw up your quadcopter, fly it somewhere, spot something, then jump to the camera, then find a vent, then jump back, throw your RC drone out, go drive that up and find whatever it is you were after, or solve a puzzle. And I think the way that the hacking hands off between different devices and different pieces of equipment is kind of what makes it more fun. Meanwhile, like you're sitting there cross-legged and the guard might just walk up and figure out what you're up to. So you have that time pressure to it. That part of it was pretty fun.
So then From what you're saying, from what you guys are describing, it sounds like there's a lot of gameplay options. Like you have a lot of choice when going into a mission. Is that true? Like, can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, it's pretty true. I mean, it's basically like, you have an arsenal of guns and you can go in shooting, and the AI is a little bit wonky. If you throw in a little bit of hacking, you can screw with them. For the most part, you can hack your way pretty deep into a mission, but they will show you something that is like, you need to physically be present here. Like you can't do anything remotely. So ultimately you will have to break in, and then it becomes a question of, do you sneak or do you shoot? Or do you booby trap things, right? Which I guess sort of falls into sneaking. I would try to booby trap and use violence as a last resort. AI is really good at taking cover in this game. I was playing on a mix of normal and hard. And you start to run into enemies that wear armor. I can load like 10 shotgun blasts into those guys. Can't take them down. They're still alive. But if I take my like bike chain weird yo-yo hybrid thing, I can just choke them out in 1 second. So I would always try to do that because it was more efficient and effective. Personally. Yeah.
I ran a lot of the missions creating distractions with violence, which was fun to do because it's kind of a midway. So a building with a door that was locked, you call in a gangland hit on somebody outside, and all the guards run out of the door. Meanwhile, you're sitting there with your drone and you drive through the door when it opens. So there's a lot of ways that you can approach a mission. And there's like violent distractions and there's not violent distractions. Alternatively, you can have a police officer show up and arrest somebody.
Yeah, I did play around with that. That was kind of entertaining.
And then also, I don't know, being someone who loves griefing games, I found that if you drove around in a forklift with the forklift at its optimal like height, you could actually drive through a lot of cell sections and they wouldn't notice you. They like didn't care there was this forklift just driving through their restricted area.
That is some of the weird AI in this game. Like you can do some stuff that you should not be able to get away with, but you can. And I think it allows the game to be more flexible in terms of letting you choose your path. And even on higher difficulties, it doesn't get that punishing really in terms of like AI scrutinizing things.
One of the other fun things though is when you're in the middle of hacking, sometimes another player will invade your game and you have to stop and deal with them. And also like you can invade other players' games. And usually you want to watch them and wait until they're deep into something before you hack them.
Yeah, but there's a problem.
Yeah.
That's not live. It was live during the review period of the game.
Okay.
And then some people started reporting, and I eventually experienced huge frame rate problems that would occur when seamless multiplayer, as you're describing, was trying to connect. Couldn't get rid of it until you restarted the system. And we're talking like sub 20 frames per second. I mean, it was just, you didn't want to play it. So Ubisoft took servers down, told us they should be back before launch, but then last night they said, sorry, everyone, this thing isn't in the game. We're working on it. And so that's why we currently just have a review in progress up. Look, we're still happy to say the single player game is really good. I really liked it a lot. I mean, and when the seamless multiplayer worked, it was fun. But without it, it honestly feels like something is missing from this game.
Yeah.
And so basically our plan right now is we're giving Ubisoft a couple days because that is the game that will be the game for months after this point, that's the situation we're in, but it really sucks because I love this game, and that really added that extra bit of just like it made me feel like I was part of the world, right? Like somebody could invade me at any moment, and then I have to stop what I'm doing immediately and freak out. You don't lose much by being invaded, but you stand something to gain by fighting back.
So it's kind of like, it sounds kind of like Dark Souls then in that sense.
Yeah.
Because I know they played around with that idea in the first Watch Dogs. There was like a multiplayer mode where one person was being hunted and the other one was trying to blend in, and that's okay.
It. Yeah,
and that being seamless, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, hopefully it makes a comeback. Check out our review in progress over at GameSpot.com and stay tuned in the coming days for our full review, whether seamless PvP comes back or not. If you played the game, let us know in the comments below. And that's Watch Dogs 2.